The NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by EdgeBoost. Bank Gamble for better. Sign up today. EdgeBoost.bet. Per code SGPN. You get a $25 deposit bonus. And welcome, everybody, to the NBA Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Thursday morning, May 22nd, around 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Roast Up to Sky Reichel. Once again, joined by Lonte Smith together. We're going to break down the Game 2 matchup between the Timberwolves and the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Lonte, how's it going with you? What's up?
Pretty good, man. Good action last night. Hoping we can get a repeat of that tonight.
Yeah, I feel like that was definitely some underselling because that was an all-time crazy basketball game yesterday. Assuming everyone knows what I'm talking about. If not, then you definitely missed out. So you should probably pause this episode and check out the actual highlights because it was arguably the greatest playoff comeback of all time. And I feel like I got to at least talk about it because Indiana was down but not out. And as we've seen time and time again, they signed up for 48. And in this case, 53, because they were able to come all the way back and win the game in overtime. They were down 14 points with 2:40 to go. They were down 9 points with 52 seconds left, and they ended up winning the game, which sounds impossible, but it happened. And it was the Nesmith game. You could throw a lot of different, I'd say, reasons as to why the Pacers were able to come back. You could really just come up with it's really tough to describe just how many things had to go right for Indiana in order to pull it off. But I can't really say that it was fluky because they've done it 2 times already this postseason. So apparently Indiana has discovered the art of the comeback, and they were able to do so again in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm going to ask you what your takeaways were because when I was watching it live, I didn't actually comprehend at the time what was happening because you look up and the Knicks are up 16 or so. They're coasting. The game's over. Brunson picks up his 5th foul, and then you figure, okay, Indiana's going to go on a massive run here. And they did not. The Knicks went on a 12-0 run to blow the game open. And you kind of figured, okay, the Pacers can't get a stop. This game's probably over. Cat's got 35. Brunson finished with 43. And you figure, okay, this game's probably over. And it wasn't because Indiana came all the way back. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts. What do you think?
Man, it was a lot to unpack. I'll start with the resiliency I thought of both teams are going to be in full effect in this series, and the Pacers showed that. Just the constant when they get down, they don't try to go like most teams do and shoot 3 and try to just get back in it the fast way. I think Halliburton talked about how there's obviously no 17-point shot, so they kind of don't want to chip away, get it to 10, then get it to 5, and I thought that's really big of them to keep their composure when things weren't really going as well. Obviously, the Pacers deserve the majority of the credit, but the Knicks blew that game, man. They had ample opportunity to put it away, even with Brunson in foul trouble. They had the lack of defense, and they were getting sliced in the defense. They were getting sliced in the half court defensively within the half court. Like at the end of the game, we saw the Halliburton assist to Nembhard, which was literally it looked like a layup line.
Josh Hart fell asleep.
Yeah, and the Knicks were slipping. Brunson was bad, turning the ball over, missed free throws. Cat had on the pick and roll. They figured out something. I thought when Halliburton got going in that second quarter, they kind of found something, and they went back to it in that fourth quarter with the high pick and roll, putting Cat in that. And Cat is just pretty much a cone out there. They were just going all the way around him. Obviously, the Nesmith heroics, you can't let them get that many off. I mean, I thought they fouled too early. Similar to that was about the same time as OKC did in Game 1, if I'm not mistaken. I thought it was way too early to foul. OG missing the, when Brunson got to the paint and the one that they reviewed, I thought he should have kept that.
They shouldn't have shot it. They're going to foul him anyway.
That too. But I just thought he has to keep the ball in his hands. He had almost turned it over again when OG missed one of the 2 free throws, like off the inbound. I thought they imploded pretty badly. But again, I mean, all that, and they still won. It's only one game, but it was an incredible game. Great comeback by the Pacers. Pretty bad choke job by the Knicks.
Yeah, so to actually kind of go through what happened there at the end, the Pacers, I'll ask you a trivia question. Do you know how many consecutive possessions the Pacers scored on to end regulation?
Well, I know Nesmith hit like 5 in a row. I would say
that includes like 1 out of 2 free throw stuff. I mean, like how many possessions did Indiana score at least 1 point on to end regulation?
I would say 15.
13.
Okay.
13 straight possessions with at least 1 point for Indiana in the final about 6 minutes to force the comeback into overtime, and that resulted in the win. The Halliburton shot, of course, is the crazy actual shot because it popped up off the back of the rim, basically as high as the backboard, and then ended up going in. I thought he won the game, and then it turns out his foot was on the line, and the Pacers had to kind of reset mentally to get the job done. I want to give a shout-out, though, to Carlisle, who benched Miles Turner's ass in overtime, who I thought was awful down the stretch. Had the nice block, which was potentially a goaltend, but still, either way, though, they benched him because he was awful to start overtime. Brought in Obi. Obi had a nice putback dunk there towards the end of overtime. I thought benching Turner, though, helped, and it really allowed Indiana to just go even faster, and they wanted to, and they wore the Knicks down defensively over the course of the final 11 minutes, including overtime. But just to go through a crazy stat here that I actually found, before Game 1 yesterday, NBA teams, a reminder that the Pacers trailed by 12, once again, 9 with 52 seconds left. Before Game 1 last night, NBA teams that trailed by 9+ points in the final minute of the fourth quarter or overtime of a playoff game were 0 and 1,414 since 1998. And now they're 1 and 14 because the Pacers were the first team in over 1,400, I guess, attempts basically to successfully come back from being down 9+ in the final minute. When it comes to all-time playoff comebacks or choke jobs, however you want to phrase it, it's on a short list.
Yeah, definitely.
It is arguably the worst choke job of all time in the playoffs, especially based on the stakes, because they are in the conference finals and the Knicks are trying to make the finals for the first time in about 20-something years. It's up there. Yeah. Now, I think my short list might start with the Durant and Curry and Clay and Draymond Warriors blowing a 31-point lead to the Clippers in the first round, but they won the series anyway, and they won the title anyway. Actually, no, they didn't win the title. They lost in the finals to Toronto. But the point is that they won the series anyway, so I guess in hindsight, it's not as bad because of the stakes being in the first round and the Warriors winning that series anyway in 6. But I remember Golden State blowing a 31-point lead to Lou Williams and to Montrezl Harrell. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? So that might be shout out to Montrez. But the point is that might be on the short list for me as well. I'll ask you, though. I know prisoner of the moment might be a thing where people might have a hard time thinking of anything that would potentially top this. Was this the worst collapse you've ever seen?
One of them, off the top of my head, I mean, the Pacers played in another one that was a big collapse with the Bucks. So, I mean, that was pretty bad, too. But, stakes-wise, obviously, this is a step up in class. Man, it's been a lot of meltdowns. I mean, Memphis's meltdown was pretty bad as well in the first round against OKC. That was pretty bad, man. I thought, but just stakes wise, and I mean, they were up 9 with like 52 seconds left. A lot has to go wrong for you to be in a position to almost lose that game, but then to lose it, and then like you have to reset after thinking that Hallie
won the game and he didn't.
Yeah, right, and like so that was, I'm pretty sure it was a range of emotions for those guys. But yeah, it's up there for sure. It's up there. One of the better, I guess, comebacks and worst collapses that I've seen in any sport.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are going to mention, of course, the Reggie Miller game because that's involving these two teams. You had the, of course, insane three-pointer, stolen inbound three-pointer, then fouled on a rebound, and at that point, he scores about 8 points in 9 seconds. So that's definitely going to be up there too. You can mention the Spurs and the McGrady game, which was a regular season game, but still, that's what Nesmith turned into McGrady for about a minute and a half, and that's how they got the job done. But yeah, I feel like once again, people are going to automatically only blame the Knicks for the loss. Indiana made every shot.
They do.
So I got to give them props to Indiana applied maximum pressure. They couldn't miss. Halliburton made a couple of big shots. Nesmith kept them in it by making about 5 straight three-pointers. It was definitely just an insane collection of events that resulted in an all-time great comeback. Once again, it will be a funny footnote for NBA fans if the Knicks come back and win the series. But if the Knicks lose this series, this goes down as an absolute all-time moment, and we'll see what happens. So it was an all-time moment last night, but if the Knicks win the series, you can kind of brush it off. So we'll see what happens here, but we'll mention if it lingers for Game 2 onward, moving on, but not in this episode. We'll save that for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. However, time to move on into the Western Conference Finals for Game 2. Anything else you want to add for the Game 1 Eastern Conference Finals, or do you think we covered it?
No, I think we covered it all. Probably could spend the whole show on that game, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I do want to point out that I do think I at least have to mention the stats for that game, because Brunson and Towns combined for 78 points, and they still lost, which really can't happen. Bridges and OG each had 16 points. I thought OG was horrible for the entire game. Bridges wasn't great either, but I did think OG was really just awful down the stretch. He had the turnover, which was a block by Siakam, where you could argue he shouldn't have shot it, but either way, that ended up being a very big, basically a turnover, because they ended up losing the possession out of that. And then he missed the free throw in there. Cat also missed the free throw, so he definitely could have potentially iced the game. But yeah, the Knicks had 4 starters, scored 16-plus points, 2 of them combined for 78, and they lost the game. So
good bench production, too.
Yeah, pretty good bench production. I saw McBride was good. He was actually a plus 12 in 25 minutes. He had 9 points. I thought Payne was brutal, and yet he was still a plus 5. So I guess he played fine. And Mitch was okay in a limited role. But point is, I thought OG was a mess down the stretch. As for Indiana, Neesmith had about 30, felt like 60, but he had 30. Halliburton at 31 and 11. I thought McConnell was good once again, because he's always good against the Knicks off the bench. And Obi was very good when they used him in overtime. I thought
Mathurin was good, but he went away from him.
Mathurin was kind of in a weird spot because he was 2 of 5 from the floor. He was a negative 14.
Yeah, so, he was getting to the paint. He was getting offensive rebounds. He was getting to the free throw line. He was decent defensively. I thought he was okay. I don't know what. I mean, I get it, but
it felt like they were kind of targeting him a bit on defense. I mean, they were really trying everybody on Brunson throughout the entire game, and nobody can guard him. And Brunson finished with 40-plus. So we'll see what happens in Game 2. It's an all-timer, so we'll see if the Knicks bounce back or if they implode again in Game 2. Anyway, time to move on into the Game 2 breakdown between the Thunder and the Timberwolves. Before getting to the actual breakdown of that, though, a reminder that we do have a great discount code on the merch store right now. Use code DEGENS. Check out for 20% off everything in the merch store. Plus, a reminder they're brought to you by EdgeBoost. They have the first ever bank account for bettors, ensuring that all your gambling transactions are approved. No usage fees and non-balance and cash rewards as well. 100% approval. Promo deposit. Sign up today. EdgeBoost.bet. Promo code SGPN. Deposit $25. EdgeBoost match deposit. EdgeBoost.bet. Promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy because they have the brand new promo. They're going long for the NBA playoffs with their extender bonus. Hop in Game 1. And the longer the series goes, the bigger the bonus gets. Also, when you sign up for a new account, use the promo code NBASGPN to get a special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to 1K bonus cash on Fantasy. Promo code NBASGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the NBA Game Podcast. Finish recapping what happened in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Time to move on into the game taking place on a Thursday night between the Timberwolves and the Thunder. So starting off with the spreads here and the total, you have the Thunder laying 7.5 in Game 2 at home, and then you have the over-under actually climbing. It was a 214.5. Now it's a 216.5. For the injury report, you have both teams which are fully healthy. Nothing to add there. Gobert was technically there in Game 1. You might not have noticed him. I had the under on his PA, which was never in doubt. I ended up sweeping Game 1, so can't complain there. But the Thunder really had a tale of two halves because they looked awful in the first half against Minnesota and then said, you know what, time to actually start trying. And they outscored Minnesota 70-40 in the second half. 70-40. Ouch. The game was over very quickly in that third quarter. And then at that point, the fourth quarter, there was a point where Minnesota could make it interesting, and Oklahoma City said, you know what, we're good. And they buried them, and the game was over. So I'll ask you in this game, Thunder punched them in the mouth, and we saw them get off to a good start. Once again, the rest over rust angle is definitely in favor of rust, because that's the third time this postseason where a team off Game 7 was able to win Game 1. So the, once again, rust angle is actually accurate. The Game 7 team is 3-0 in Game 1 against teams that had extra time off. But the Thunder have been great at home recently. They've been great in general. They're the prohibitive favorites to win the title at this point. I'll ask you, though, for Game 1, Did anything surprise you, or did it go the way you thought it was going to go?
Went kind of like I expected it to go. I thought the Thunder would play a little bit better early on. Minnesota, you would think that the time that Ant missed to start that second quarter, that they would kind of lose it a little bit, like lose the lead a little bit and some of the momentum, but they actually played particularly well without him on the floor, and he kind of comes back, and then that's when the Thunder make their run. I thought it played out similar to how I thought it would. Obviously wasn't expecting a 70-40 run in the second half, but I did think the Thunder would squeak away with a double-digit win. But how they got there was just kind of not how I envisioned it. But I thought the Timberwolves got some good looks. I thought the Thunder could play a whole lot better. But in this specific game, I think that we're going to see Minnesota play a little bit more zone, kind of protect Jaden McDaniels with the foul trouble, protect a lot of those defenders with the foul trouble, because they are, obviously just can't keep their hands off of Shea, and they can't stop, send him to the free throw line. But I think the Thunder will adjust a little bit, because they didn't play their best. They struggled finishing at the rim. I know early on the threes weren't falling, but they were getting quality looks. So they shot 50% from three, but a lot of that success came in the second half. But I like the Thunder here. I think obviously Minnesota will come out a little bit more aggressive, trying to attack the rim, put the pressure on the defense. And I'm interested to see how the game is called, because, to be fair, the Thunder were getting a little bit beneficial whistle defensively, and the Timberwolves were not getting that same whistle defensively. So I think it evens out here. But I don't see a high-scoring game at all. I don't agree. They bet the total up last game, and it barely got to 200. So I think we see a lower-scoring game, more zone from the Timberwolves. I think the Thunder play a more complete game. Yeah, I like the Thunder minus 7.5.
Yeah, it barely got to 200, and there were 60 points in garbage time, basically, of the fourth quarter.
Right.
So the game was flying under. Each of the first three quarters at less than 51. So I do like the under as well with you. Do want to point out Randall was very good early in the game. The entire Timberwolves team didn't show up for the second half, but Randall had 28 points, 8 rebounds. Ant was invisible the entire game. I thought it was pretty bad. I had 8 rebounds. I had 9 rebounds, so I'm not surprised he was good on the boards. Gave him out to be the rebounding leader at about 40-1, so a good start there. But he had 18 points, didn't really do much. For the Thunder, 4 of the 5 starters had 12-plus points. Hartenstein at 12. Saw Chet have a really bad first half. Then he picked it up and scored 15. J-Dub had 19, and Shea had a really inefficient 31 on 10 of 27 from the floor. Did a good job in the second half. Of course, the main talking point from game one was the whistle that Shea was getting, because he was 11-14 from the foul line. My main concern was Ant ghosting another playoff game, but nobody talking about it because he has generational PR. And I feel like Ant never really gets held accountable for no showing playoff games, and it's happened more often than you think. So is that a fair statement? Because I remember Ant having a pretty bad Western Conference Finals last year. He was not great in the closer game against the Lakers. I thought Randall was the best player on that team for a decent portion of that Warriors series. I know that Ant had a couple of monster second halves. Yeah. He was no showing the first half in pretty much all those games. Mm-hmm. And nobody talks about it. Why is that? I feel like Ant needs to play
because he's so likable. Yeah, he's just so likable.
I get it. I'm just saying, I think Ant needs to have more consistent playoff performances instead of just having phenomenal halves. Yeah, Ant no-showed the entire game. Nobody called him out for it, except for me.
No,
I'm calling him out for it. Do something. He scored 18 points in a playoff game.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's got to be a little bit more aggressive. He was. I didn't really like his presser. He was just saying, "Oh well, they loaded up, couldn't get to the lane." But we've pretty much been seeing that your whole NBA career, because that's been the anchor of these defensive teams. They want to stop you from getting to the paint. So it's not like any other challenge. Just maybe the ankle was bothering him, but maybe that's a little bit of an excuse, because he came back and he almost dunked on the entire Thunder team. So I don't think that was an issue. The Thunder did do a good job, but again, Finch was saying that he got to do a better job of getting him and Randall in certain spots and areas that they like. So it could be scheme driven, but a lot of it has to do with just Ant not being as aggressive as he usually is. Now, does he have to get downhill every single time? No, but at least put some pressure on the defense to open up to get those threes. And then I think when you play a mixed game of mid-range finishing at the, he's had trouble finishing at the rim. He's like sub 40% or sub 45% finishing at the rim in the playoffs in the half court. So he's struggled defending finishing at the rim. And the Thunder do a really good job with Chet and Hartenstein of that. But great players. They have to figure it out. I think he will figure it out. Just he's got to be a little bit more consistent with being able to figure it out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and even with the garbage time, Ant still played 37 minutes, and there's no world, no matter how much they're loading up on you,
Yeah, 18.
Ant should only take 13 shots from the floor. That just shouldn't happen.
How many free throws?
Ant had a grand total of 7 free throws.
7, yeah.
He made 5 of them, but he attempted 7. But
yeah, that was early on, too, whenever they were kind of fouling a little bit earlier.
They were only winning the game because of Randall. Randall
Yeah.
carried the team in the entire first half, and Ant was kind of an afterthought. But I got to mention it because Ant's got to play better. That's just not good enough. Now, I do want to ask you a trivia question. Do you know how many players in Game 1 for Minnesota scored 10-plus points?
I would say 2, Randall and Ant-Man.
That is correct. They're the only 2 guys to score 10-plus points in the entire team.
Because McDaniels came out, hit a 3, hit a mid-range jumper, and don't think he scored again. I think he maybe scored 2 free throws. I think he had 7.
He had 7 because he fouled out. Yeah.
But I mean, he started off high. He scored the first 5. And they did a good job of keeping him out of the game, messing up his flow. So yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, by the way, the Timberwolves went 15 of 51 from 3.
Yeah.
The bench was horrific. DiVincenzo and Naz Reid combined to go 4 of 25.
Those were wide open too.
Yeah, they were 3 for 19 from 3. Do you want to give you another trivia question? Do you know which player on the Timberwolves led them in field goal attempts?
Field goal attempts. I would say DiVincenzo.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Dante DiVincenzo led them in field goal attempts.
Wide open though. A lot of them were wide open, good shots. He just missed.
Yeah, it's good for him. He has been terrible all postseason.
Yeah.
I've been roasting him every single episode, basically, and he was terrible again in Game 1. 14 shots. That's a lot of shots for a guy who can't shoot in the postseason. But the Thunder were able to clamp down. They dominated the second half. Once again, Chet was really bad early. Then he picked it up late. Gobert couldn't stay on the floor. He was an absolute zero, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like, though, asking about this game, are you picking the Thunder to dominate again? Or are you picking Minnesota to bounce back?
No, I think it'll be a competitive game. I think we'll see more so of what we saw in the first half, where it's back and forth. I think the Thunder have to do a better job starting up because they haven't. This is back-to-back games that they didn't start off particularly well. They played a good second quarter in Game 6 that they ended up losing, but they haven't started off how well they are typically used to starting off, and that's being at home. So I think they got to put some pressure on Minnesota, not let them play from in the front where they can, mitigate some of those mistakes. I think the Thunder have to put the pressure on them. But I think we see a highly competitive game. I think the Thunder pull away late, maybe win by 9 or 10.
Yeah, I think I have OKC covering as well. I took the alt spread in Game 1. I had the -9.5 as my dog.
Likewise.
That got there. So that worked out. Look, Minnesota, at the end of the day, I think this is a pretty solid basketball team. The problem with the actual matchup for them, which I mentioned in the preview episode for the series, they faced off against 2 pretty flawed teams, in Golden State and in the Lakers. One common theme, neither of them have size or depth. The Thunder have both of those in spades because they have Hartenstein, they have Chet, and you also throw in all the bench guys they have with Case and Wallace, with Caruso, etc. They are a unique challenge that I'm not sure Minnesota's equipped to handle. Now, I picked them to win 2 games, which might be generous. I thought the Thunder would win in 6 maximum. I didn't see it going 7, personally. I think the Thunder are the best team in the league left by a decent margin. You could argue Indiana's close, but I do think Indiana defensively can still leave a bit to be desired.
Yeah.
The Thunder defensively, at least in the modern era, if you want to go past 2000s basketball, are they the best defensive team of all time? Because you can make a conversation with the metrics they are, and I know that the refs allowed them to get away with murder half the time. That's part of it. But I am going to ask you, because I know that you have the depth lineup for Golden State with Draymond. That was more of a lineup thing instead of an entire game. The Thunder defensively, though, might be the best defense that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
They're an all-time great defense, and they can throw so many people at you off the bench, whether it involves Caruso or Wallace. They have the size to challenge the rim. They don't have really any flaws defensively. All of their guys can guard, and they switch everything. They have active hands. They rebound pretty well. I'm going to ask you, because when I'm watching OKC play, I don't like their half-court offense. I think it's very ugly, and I think it can get very stagnant at times. We saw it in the first half against Minnesota. Having said that, their defense is so good I'm not sure it matters, but I'm going to ask you because they're on a short list of all-time great defenses.
Yeah.
Yes, you have the Pistons with Ben Wallace, for example. Different era.
Different era. Yeah,
different era. But I got to mention them there because they won a title on their defense basically alone. Is OKC as good defensively as I'm saying? Because it feels that way watching them play.
Yeah, they are, and I think you bring up a good point with the errors because a couple of defenses that I looked at as being like pretty dominant was that Boston team with KG, Rondo, Paul Pierce, Ray. I thought they were really good defensively, but what OKC does really well is that they have the depth by position, so it's no drop off versus other teams who we have. Like, for instance, I love the Grizzlies defense, like the grit and grind era with Tony Allen, with Mike Conley, with Zebo, with Marc Gasol. They had guys that could defend, but whenever they went away from certain guys, like they didn't have the depth. Now you're coming off the bench with two of your top three defenders in Caruso and Wallace, like on ball defenders. So everybody can defend, and it's really nobody. I mean, people will attack Shea, but Shea's not a bad defender. Like he can hold his own. Like he's like one of the top defenders, like on ball, like metric wise, and they're choosing to attack him because they don't want to go. They want to go away from Dort. Chet, obviously, good rim protector. Hartenstein,
everybody
really
else is just so good that Shea's technically the weakest link, and he's still a pretty decent defender.
Right. So I think that they're elite. What makes them elite is how versatile they are and how many guys they have that could do multiple things. I mean, you got Caruso guarding centers, which makes it easier for Dort to play on the perimeter. So that's why Julius Randle was kind of negated because early on, he was getting what he wanted, and it's like, well, we'll put Lou Dort on. And Lou Dort kind of shut his water off, and you kind of saw the trickle-down effect when they weren't able to get anything going with Ant-Man. So, yeah, I would agree that one of the top – I mean, but you have to just separate it in error because a lot of those defenses, like they were talking about with the Celtics, and I think you brought up the Golden State and the Detroit Pistons, like those errors were not, like, spaced out. They were more like post-defiant, walk the ball up, like the pace was pretty down. So, I would say this Thunder team is one of the best I've seen in a long time just because of their versatility, the way that they're able to bring guys off the bench and plug them in and no drop-off defensively from anybody. Even Kenrich Williams, Aaron Wiggins, like all those guys can defend and play really well in space. So it's just no drop-off. And I think that is basically relentless. That's relentless effort. That's relentless scheme, good coaching. All of that stuff plays in the part as how it's no drop off from anybody on the court when they're playing defensive.
Yeah, the weakest link is arguably Isaiah Joe, and he barely plays, so it doesn't really matter at all. Right. But the point is everyone can actually guard 1 through 5 for the most part, and they have about 8 guys that can do that. So I wanted to mention it because OKC's defense, if you're not sold in the offense, I get it, because I understand the foul baiting can be a bit concerning for Shea. Truth is, Brunson was pretty bad last night with the foul baiting. I thought he was a mess in terms of flopping all over the place. But still, the point is, I understand why people are a bit upset about the offense because it can get very stagnant, myself included. Having said that, their defense is honestly just something that I've not really seen before. I feel like you've seen aspects of it, but never with the depth and the consistency and also the pace. Yeah. Because you mentioned, for example, Memphis with the grit and grind. You have the Ben Wallace Pistons years. Those were very, very, I'd say, I'll put it this way. They were intentionally punting the pace of the game. They wanted it at a snail's pace. They're going to play at the half court. That was how they're going to play. The Thunder can play either way. The Thunder can go fast. They can go slow. They can really use whatever pace they want. And they're still dominant defensively. And I'm wondering for Minnesota, because it didn't really matter much in the first 2 series, is the supporting cast good enough to carry them potentially if needed if Randall or Ant have an off game? Ant had an off game in game 1, and they scored less than 90 points. So I don't know if they're good enough offensively because, yes, I know the bench could play better. DiVincenzo's been bad all postseason, but in theory could get hot. Reed's been a mess lately too. He can play better. Do I like Conley? No. Do I think Jaden McDaniels is reliable? Not really. He's had a couple of monster games. I don't think that's really consistent for him. Do I like the other options? Not really. I feel like that's the problem they have. I mean, unless you disagree with me, because we know Gobert's not going to be a threat unless he's being guarded by whoever the center was for the Lakers in Game 5. I agree with you. I mean, another thing that makes them so good is their ability to, like a lot of those teams that we were talking about, when they got turnovers, they still walk the ball up. They're turning their defense into offense. Like 100%. They're trying to, like, live ball turnovers are basically like
those are basically 2 points. If they can get the live ball turnovers. And when they extend and go like a half court pressure defense, you can't dribble the ball. Like, you can't dribble in a crowd. Like, they are so good at taking away those passing lanes. So I think the ball movement has to be like intentional. You have to make your mind up. You can't just be out there thinking that you're going to just dribble past these guys, because they have help coming from all different angles, their speed, their recovery, and they're turning that defense and offense as good as I've ever seen anybody do so. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, they turn the ball over a lot, man. You saw the carelessness of the turnovers with those guys, and they don't have multiple ball handlers. I mean, Mike Conley's a little bit older. He's able to handle the ball. He's a veteran. Ant obviously can handle the ball, but outside of those two guys,
I'm pretty much merging Conley with DiVincenzo because they're kind of the same idea. They're not actually, in my opinion, the guy you want to have the ball in their hands, but at least they could handle the ball.
Right, but I don't really trust DiVincenzo to initiate offense.
I don't either.
Right, so that's my point. Like, you got to have multiple ball handlers to be able to deal with the pressure of OKC and to not turn the ball over. And the issue with that is one of Minnesota's ball handlers is their best player, and that means he's got to create for himself, which means that's tiring him out on the offensive end and tiring him out on the defensive end, and he's got to go back and guard Jalen Williams or Shea. And that's the issue.
Yeah, I definitely think that it also is worth mentioning something I pointed out in that Warriors series. The Timberwolves really are awful at dealing with on-ball pressure. Because we saw Golden State full court press a couple times in I'd say drastic situations, and they were down like 15 with 3 to go, etc. And Minnesota just chucks the ball around the court. They have no actual, I'd say, carefulness with the basketball. They turn it over a ton. And you're looking at the Thunder, who apply more on-ball pressure than anybody. And the Timberwolves in Game 1 had 18 assists and 17 turnovers.
And OKC turned the ball over a ton as well, and they don't turn the ball over. They generally...
They turned it over 12 times. It wasn't as bad as you thought, but early on they turned it over a ton. And they were able... That's why they won in the third quarter run. They kind of cut that out, but they had 12, which is
they don't
fine.
turn the ball over, though. They don't get double-digit turnovers often.
Yeah, but for this game, I think we agree. I'm on the Thunder again, and I'm going to go with the under for this game. Minnesota, I picked them to win a couple games. Once again, maybe OKC wins in 5, and maybe we see the Timberwolves bounce back in Game 2. We have seen a lot of zigzag theory in the playoffs so far, where teams that look great in Game 1 suddenly look pretty bad in Game 2, and you might get some chaos. But I'm looking at what OKC is doing defensively and what the options are for Minnesota. And besides hoping that Reed, who's been bad for the last couple games, is DiVincenzo, who's been really relied upon more than he ever should, because he's been that bad, but Connolly is being targeted defensively. You have to use him. So with those two guys getting a large portion of responsibility, it creates a lot of danger, kind of like the Nuggets relying on Westbrook a lot, where you acknowledge the volatility, but you can't really go away from them. So you have to keep using him, hoping you had a good game. And I feel like I have more faith in Reed than DiVincenzo at this point, but I got to mention it. When they combined to go, once again, just for the actual shooting numbers in Game 1, they went 6 of 25. They were a mess. Ant was invisible. Randall was incredible for a half. He only had 1 assist, so at least they limited his playmaking. But I'm looking at Minnesota's offense, and I have to ask you, because I know we kind of just talked about it, how many guys really scare you? Because Randall can be hot and cold. He's been very hot lately. Ant has been more invisible than people want to admit, more often than not. He had a couple of great halves against the Warriors, but I do think he can be playing better. And besides those two guys, who do you like?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I mean, nobody scares me if I'm OKC but Ant. And I think the product of him getting going and scoring those 30 and 35, that means you got to load up a little bit more on him. You can't play him single coverage. They had a lot of success because they were able – and OKC's defense has a lot of success, but they don't do a lot of doubling because they don't have to, because their defenders are so good. But now if Ant gets going, like, you kind of got to shade over a little bit, which opens up, more open looks for, DiVincenzo, Conley, and some of those guys. And granted, they missed those looks in the first game. I think they'll make them going forward a little bit better than what they were.
I'm tired of having faith in DiVincenzo to make shots.
Yeah, that's fair.
Reed I can agree with, but DiVincenzo I've been out on for weeks.
Yeah. And then you got the McDaniels corner jumper. He's really good on the corner threes. But, if I'm them, I'm cool with Randall scoring. If he wants to score 30 and shoot, threes, okay, that's cool. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Randall doing what he did in Game 1, because that means the ball is in his hands and not Ant's. So I completely want Randall to do what he does, and especially if he's going to just shoot the three. Granted, he was making them, so I would keep shooting them too. But I think he's better at mixing the game up drawing fouls, getting to the line, causing them to shift their defense to maybe get the guys other looks, because he was averaging like 7 assists in the last series. But again, you talked about it early on. They didn't have the type of defenders interior or on the perimeter as OKC has. So I think that's the issue. But to answer your question, like, Ant would be the only guy that I would be like scared of, because I truly believe that their success is like those other guys, McDaniels, Reed, DiVincenzo. I think all of their success is banking on him being hot and the defense kind of shifting to do things that they don't normally do, which leaves those guys kind of on islands and being able to make open shots.
Yeah, you mentioned Randall, of course, having a great series against the Warriors. I will point out that was basically a G League team, or not a G League team, basically a play-in team without Curry for the final 4 games, because Golden State had no size. Butler ghosted for part of that series too.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have enough.
Yeah.
And when your rim protection is going to be either Draymond, who Randall dominated the entire series, or you're throwing in Quentin Post, good luck with that. Like, that's not going to go well. This is definitely a unique obstacle. But moving on to the actual player props, see some questions about some guys, so I do want to know your thoughts on them.
Yeah.
I see somebody mentioning McDaniels will play better. I know foul trouble kind of took him out of the flow of game 1.
Yeah.
They need him.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think he'll avoid foul trouble in this game? I didn't say that either. We'll see if MVP SGA gets an MVP whistle tonight. But either way,
they got to take him off him or go more zone. He can't. I mean, I was talking about it yesterday with Real. I think McDaniels he's like a big physical shutdown corner. He's like Richard Sherman. He can guard those big physical guys like Luka, LeBron. Like, he can guard them really well. Brunson, like all those guys who are physical. But Shea's so shifty. Mm-hmm. He's so good ball handling, creating space. Like, it's harder for him to stay in front of him. And I mean, some of it is fouling, but again, like, he's a risk taker. Like, he's aggressive. You can't be that. You can't be aggressive against Shea. Not if they're going to call, those calls that they've been getting. So yeah, I mean, I think McDaniels, they have to take him off of him. Maybe put a bigger. Maybe put a more. I mean, I would probably try to put Ant on him. You got to just switch it up. Like, I wouldn't put McDaniels on him. I would play more zone as well.
Yeah, I do want to ask you, though, for McDaniels, if you want to take his props, I'll ask you, because I do think, once again, they're going to need him to play well, and the fact that he was off the court was a big deal. But for his points, that 11.5, you can find minus 105, basically. Against the Thunder, he had 17-plus points in 3 of the last 4, but he was not good in Game 1 because of foul trouble. Do you like him in this game? Are there any players are actually targeting for props in this game?
For McDaniels, I would probably stay away from the points, just because I want to see if they really are going to take him off him and put him in more of a zone coverage. I would look at his threes more, because if I envision Ant having a better game, then that defense is going to have to shift. So I would look at his threes made. That should be at 1.5. That should be at plus money 1.5 if I'm not mistaken.
You can find McDaniels 3-pointers at, just trying to find it right now. It's at 1.5 plus 165.
Yeah, I think that's a good look. I think he'll hit a few more than he did. I mean, he started out the game pretty well, but foul trouble kind of in and out, and a lot of his focus is on the defensive end. So I would stay away from the points. I like the threes, though. I do like the threes.
Yeah, I do think if I'm looking at props, though, I know in Game 1, I took Gobert under on his PA at 9.5. I'm going to ask you about Gobert, because initially going into this series, I thought it was going to be a disaster for him because of how active the hands are for the Thunder. Gobert does bring the ball down pretty low on catches, and I was just figuring they're going to swat at it. Happened multiple times in Game 1. Gobert was a non-entity, and it's kind of what I expected because I took it as my lock, but really any path for Gobert to play well in the series, or do you think it's just a spot where he's screwed, and the sooner you bring in Naz Reid, the better?
I completely agree, man. I think that 2 fouls was a blessing in disguise for Minnesota and Finch, because, I mean, what is he going to – like, he can't score. He can't catch the ball. He can't dribble. Like, you can't do any of those things.
It was like 80 seconds, by the way. It was 2 fouls immediately.
Yeah. I mean, granted, Naz Reid didn't make it look any better because he was bad. Yeah. But, again, I mean, Rudy's not – what path is it? He can't protect the rim because Chet and Hartenstein are playing out, and they're opening up driving lanes, so he can't protect the rim. So what is he going to do? I've been playing him under pretty much all playoffs, because it was not advantageous matchups. Like, he would be better suited against the Joker, where he can stay on the floor, or against a bigger, like, Hartenstein's bringing him out. Hartenstein's hitting the soft, like, 10 to 12 foot floater. Like, it's nothing that Rudy can do. He's not even grabbing rebounds, bro. Like, what is he going to do? I don't understand. I don't see a path where he has any type of success.
Yeah, the thing I'll say, though, is that even though I did take it in game 1, I'll not take it again in game 2. 9.5 PA, I'm fine with. 7.5, at this point, you're kind of cutting it because Gobert might, if he avoids foul trouble, he might play 30 minutes.
Yeah, he can get 7 rebounds pretty much. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's why I did PA, because I wanted to ignore the rebounds. So I do think Gobert might play better. He can't play any worse than he did in game 1. I wouldn't trust him either. But I'll ask you about Ant, because Ant was a guy who no-showed game 1. The rebounds were good, which I predicted pre-series. It's at 6.5 now. It's juiced, though, 135. Is there anything you like for Ant or for any of the other star players for either Minnesota or for OKC in this game?
Yeah, so I like Ant. What is his number at? It was at 25.5 last game, from
his points are at 25.5 again. It's at plus 114. You can find 24.5 if you want it, but that's available at minus 106.
Yeah, I like that 25.5. I mean, I think he's going to have to set the tone if they want to have any kind of success. If he does not score over this number, they're probably going to get blown out. Simply because of the gravity that he pulls defensively. And once he has things going, like I said, OKC has to shift a little bit and do things out of the norm, whether that's double, send a little bit of help on the weak side, get the ball out of his hands. Ant is the most blitz player in the NBA. He was throughout the entire league. But the Thunder don't have, like I said, they don't have to do that because they're fighting over those screens. Caruso, Wallace, all of those guys are fighting over the screen. So it's even tough to even get a switch, to get Hartenstein on them. And once you get Hartenstein on them, okay, that's fine. So we'll just drop Chet off in the help side, and it's hard to get to the rim. But I do think that they'll play more in transition and try to beat the defense from being set. And if they can protect the ball, I think Ant has a really good chance to score like 30 plus to keep it competitive. I'm sorry.
You're going to need him to. No, I'm just going to say they need him to. But.
On the other side, I like J-Dub, man. I thought J-Dub, he got a little bit of rhythm getting in transition. He wasn't really aggressive offensively as much as I would like. But, again, kind of didn't really need to. He was getting a lot of his stuff off turnovers. He hit a couple timely shots. I think he'll be better offensively. Defensively, if they play a little bit more of that zone, I think they'll have him as an initiator. Some of the things that I liked in the half court when he was initiating. Even in the full court when McDaniel was kind of pressing Shea, they allowed Jalen to kind of initiate the offense. So I think J-Dub can have a big night as well to kind of lead them to victory.
Yeah, I do think if I'm looking at guys that they do want to target, I actually like a fade of Randall to some degree. His rebounds and assists are at 12.5, which is way too high. If you actually look at his postseason numbers, he's gone under this number in 8 of the first 11 playoff games. He only had 9 in game 1. He had 1 assist. He had 8 rebounds, but Gobert barely played. And we know Gobert can definitely, when he's actually rebounding, take away chances from Randall. I think 12.5 is a lot. Randall had a great scoring game, and the Thunder kind of let him isolate a ton. But I think 12.5 feels pretty large. He's gone under this in 4 straight against OKC. I think it's a pretty high number. I like it. Give me the under 12.5 RA for Randall at minus 125 for this one.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you want to ask you, is there anything else you want to talk about for props or for sides, totals, takeaways, Shea winning MVP? Anything you want to talk about?
Just well deserved for him. Great speech, actually. But yeah, not much, man. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, the one thing I'll mention about Shea winning MVP is the fact that I do think everybody's aware that Joker is the best player in the world. But I've said for pretty much a month straight on the show, 2 months straight, Shea's winning MVP. MVP is one of the easiest awards to bet on.
It is.
Because whoever's the favorite with like a month to go, there's a reason why Shea's like minus 600. He's winning. Like it's not going to happen for Joker. Whether Joker deserves it or not, you knew going in based on betting markets who was going to win with about 2 months to go. It was obvious. I've been saying it many times on the show. Do I think Joker should have won the MVP? Look, 68 wins. I know how good the Thunder are anyway with supporting cast. I get it. The win differential was definitely noticeable. Having said that, I don't think Denver's actually that good at basketball. And I thought Joker basically is the entire engine of the team. So it depends how you look at it. But playoffs aren't included. They picked the best player on a 68-win team. Yep. Shea is a deserving MVP most years. Mm-hmm. Joker put up an insane stat line, an all-time great year, so I understand in this case if you'd prefer Joker winning it. But 68 wins is 68 wins, and Shea was the best player. Like, I get it. 100%. But would I have voted for Shea? Probably not. Does it matter? No. Because I think that Shea in most years was deserving to win it. I'm not going to get mad at Shea winning an MVP.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I would have voted for him for sure. I mean, people always say that they value winning until it's time to value winning. and and they don't because Joker is a likable person. I've heard people with votes talk about how great Joker's season is, and my thing is, granted, they finished fourth, right? Or fourth or fifth?
They finished fifth. They finished fourth at home court against the Clippers.
Yeah. So I mean, but granted, they were a game away from being ninth. So it's not a ton of separation there, but it's just those are the same people who said they wouldn't vote for Russell Westbrook in that year because they weren't winning. But now you got an elite player, 68 wins, been in the MVP top 3 for the past 3 years. I mean, it got to be some kind of separation. Obviously, Joker's the best player. No, I don't think anybody's going to debate that. But
it's a classic MVP argument, though, where people who think Joker should win are basically saying if you plucked both players off their respective teams, how would they look? Mm-hmm. And the Thunder without Shea might still be a playoff team.
Yeah, but that's just not how that's just not how the MVP
No, I'm saying that's the argument people would make. That's why they're drawing this conclusion. But I was fine with Shea winning it. I would have voted Joker. Do I care that much? Not really. I don't really care. But either way, nice job by Shea winning the MVP after allegedly getting hosed last year. I don't think he did, but some people think he did. So either way, he was able to get the job done there this second time around. Either way, that's going to wrap it up for the Game 2 breakdown of the Western Conference Finals. Time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks. Before we do that, though, a reminder that we are brought to you by our sponsor Rhythm because they're the home of bet picks and are also available for the NBA playoffs, for the golf card, for baseball, for WNBA as well. They're also available for a free trial for a week, so try it out for free for a week to see if you like the actual platform. If you want to sign up full-time, though, you can use some discount codes. 25% off the monthly subscription, promo code SGPN25, 50% off the annual subscription, promo code SGPN50. That's Rhythm, promo code SGPN25, SGPN50 for your discount codes. And a reminder, get your 70 free trial by going to sportsgamble.com/RATHMM. We're also brought to you by the Circle Ultimate Fantasy Football Giveaway because Circle Resort Casino in Las Vegas giving away the ultimate fantasy football experience for a 12-person league draft in Vegas and be treated like VIPs for your stay. We're going to get a 2-night stay at Circle Resort and Casino for the entire 12-person league. Hold your draft at Cabana Stadium Swim with a $5,000 food and beverage credit, limited transportation to and from the airport, and a welcome party at Legacy Club for the league, and much more. A reminder, the contest is from May 5th to June 30th. Enter at sportsgamble.com, Circa, sportsgamble.com, so CIRCA. We're also brought to you by MyBookie, because MyBookie does have a ton of sports. They have every sport you can think of to bet on. And a reminder, they have the NBA playoffs, the MLB, they have the NHL playoffs, you name it. They also available to locations. Use crypto for payouts, use deposits. When you sign up for your new account at mybookie.ag, use the promo code SGPN to get a 100% match up to 1K. Terms and conditions by mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the NBA Game Podcast. Finished going through the Game 2 preview between the Thunder and the Timberwolves. Now it's time for the Lock and Dog picks. Lonte, what's going to be your Lock and Dog for the show?
Yeah, so I'm going to take OKC minus 2.5 in the first quarter. I think they have to get off to a better start. Although they won that game in blowout fashion, I don't think they'll be. I don't think they'll be conservative here. I think they'll come out. They didn't come out nearly as good as they finished. So I think they'll come out with a conservative effort, kind of get things going, make Minnesota climb uphill to fight back. So I like minus 2.5 in the first quarter. Dog-wise, I'm going to go with Chet, 20-plus points at plus 375. He hasn't had a 20-point game. He's had 2 20-point games this postseason. I think he had back-to-back 20 and 24 against Memphis. I do think that the zone will be implemented a little bit more, which kind of helps him out on the baseline, catching those lobs from Hartenstein. And then I think his shot, he's been getting good shots, but he just hasn't been taking them. So I think he'll be a little bit more aggressive in making those shots. He can knock down a few threes. He's been right there in a couple games. Only had 9 shot attempts last game. I think he had 3 of his last 4 games with less than 10 shot attempts. But I think he'll get an increased shot attempt here. And I think Chet's game for a big game, man. We haven't had a big Chet game this postseason that really mattered. So I think we get one tonight. So 20-plus points for Chet, plus 375.
All right, so for my lock, give me the Randall under on his RA at 12.5. Minus 125, I still think the line's too high. Got under in 4 straight against the Thunder. He only had 9 in game 1. I think at the end of the day, you mentioned Randall and how the Thunder might let him isolation score. A lot of Minnesota's offense involves isolation.
That's why they can't beat him. That's why they can't beat him.
I know, but you're looking at Ant and you're looking at Randall, who want to kind of dance. And the argument is the Thunder, who are going to potentially send extra bodies on the drives. I think you're right, though. I think they're fine letting Randall shoot I'd say, a bunch of mid-range jumpers all game, and that's why he only had 1 assist. Not to mention Minnesota's supporting cast breaking every shot, but the rebounds were pretty good for Randall, who has really not been that great on the boards compared to what you might think in the postseason so far. Had the triple-double game against the Warriors. He's had less than 9 rebounds in every game since. In fact, he's only had 1 playoff game, that Warriors game, where he's had over 8 rebounds. So he's not done a great job on the boards. The assists have not been there either recently. Thunder have been good against him. I think 12.5 is too high. Give me the under on his RA at -125 as my lock. For my dog, do I just run back the OKC spread?
Why not? I was going to do it,
I
but
might.
I wanted to go a little bit different.
I think I'm going to, because I just feel like the Avalanche is always there.
Yeah.
Where Minnesota can start off hot like they did in Game 1, and the Thunder just flip a switch, and next thing you know, they're up 20, which we've seen all season. I'll tell you what, though. The home crowd is wild in OKC. It's an elite home crowd, and besides the Game 1 choke job against Denver, they've been borderline unbeatable at home, and I think Minnesota's going to struggle to beat them. So give me the Thunder minus the 9.5 again. I'll run it back for Game 2 after winning Game 1 with it. Give me the Thunder minus the 9.5 at +124 as my dog. I see a question, by the way, from Ben, if we have any thoughts on the Cason Wallace RA for this one. First of all, 33 minutes is too high. I don't see Wallace playing that many minutes. He should be somewhere in the 20s. I think Dort, though, can do his job. Caruso can as well. Wallace is solid, but the Thunder have so many guys that do the same thing in a good way for role players that assuming you're going to get that much playing time from Wallace is a bit, I'd say, asking a bit much for me. I see him finishing somewhere in the 20s for playing time. So do we agree on that, by the way? Because for Game 1, Wallace had a grand total of, he played 33. I think garbage time played a factor with that. I think he'll play closer to like 25 in this game, personally. It might come down to Dort. Because like if Dort is not making shots, what's the point? But if Dort actually makes his shots, then Wallace might be, I don't want to say an afterthought, but I do think he'll be, I'd say, coming in a bit later if Dort's making his shots. Played 33 minutes in Game 1. I think he's a great player. I think he'll be closer to the 25 range in Game 2. But what are your thoughts on that for playing time?
Yeah, I don't disagree. Cason actually has been the first guy off the bench instead of Caruso.
He should. He could actually shoot.
Yeah, I would add the points in there as well because if you think if it's going to be competitive, they're going to rotate those bodies in and out, and they did pretty good. Like I said, they do a really good job when Shai's on the bench of ball movement. And Cason Wallace being in the middle of that zone, he's getting like lob passes to Chet, to Hartenstein. He's bringing the ball up, and I would add the points in there. But I like that. But I agree with you. I would say a little bit probably more on the 24, 25-minute side. Granted, unless we see some foul trouble with like Dort or maybe J-Dub or whatever. But yeah, I completely agree with the 25 to 28-minute span. But I think he still can exceed the RA. I would throw the points in there as well because he's getting those wide open looks.
Yeah, he could actually shoot.
Yeah,
he's really good from 3
he's
so
really
far
good.
this postseason.
Really good.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup too. But anyway, we did go through our lock and dog plays, and now it's time for the underdog entry for the show. Lonte, no pressure, but Terrell and I have won 2 straight on WNBA. So no pressure for the underdog entry. I don't know how you did with Terrell on the underdog entry for the Knicks game.
We had Cat. He went higher. We had I can't remember who else. I think we had Cat. Brunson.
I feel like everyone went over. So if you pick the right players, you probably won.
Yeah, I think we hit Cat, Brunson, and somebody else on the Pacers. I can't remember who else, but yeah, I think we did win. I'll go back and look at that, but I think we did win that. Yes.
Either way, been a good underdog run for us on the channel, whether it's WNBA or NBA. I'll ask you though for any props. Who do you like? I think I do want to recycle the Randall RA.
Yeah,
I think the line's too high, so I'll go back to that. Do you have anything you want to share?
I mean, I like J-Dub, but it's not my like absolute favorite. My absolute favorite would probably be the Caruso threes. He's just keep making open threes.
I mean, they got to sacrifice something defensively, and he seems to be wide open.
If he's still at 1.5, I like that a lot.
Oh, it's not just 1.5; it's 1.5 at +150.
Yeah, Yeah, I like that a lot.
He's made 2+ in 5 of the last 6.
Right.
So
And he's wide open. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
So we'll throw that in 2, and then for one other one that we want to go with.
Do you like Chet's blocks and steals?
I thought about it. I believe he had 3 in game 1. I think his line's usually 3.5 now, which I think is always going to be a bit of a sweat there.
Yeah, that's true.
Then again, he barely played any of the fourth quarter, so there was some extra playing time that could be had. It's actually 2.5.
I think they'll be more aggressive. Minnesota will try to attack the rim. I think Finch talked about that in the presser. So I think he'll have more opportunities. It's
at 2.5. He's at least 3 in 5 straight games against the Timberwolves. So I'm fine with it. So once again, the entry here for Underdog for game 2, going to go with the Julius Randle lower on his 12.5 RA. Going to go with Caruso higher, 1.5 3-pointers, and we'll go with Chet higher, 2.5 steals and blocks. Anyway, that is going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again tomorrow for game 2 between the Knicks and the Pacers. I might have to reach out to Terrell if he wants to switch days, because I don't know if he wants to talk about game 1. So I might have to ask if he wants to switch for his sanity. So we'll see if Terrell's able to actually go for game 2. But either way, we will have the show in some iteration for game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals tomorrow. Terrell might be back tomorrow. We'll see how he's doing. But either way, point is we should have some combination for that game. Lonte, anything else you want to add for you on the show?
That's about it, man. Good luck to everybody tonight.
Yep, finished at about 56 minutes or so. So once again, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. And once again, don't forget to check out the other podcasts on the SGPN app. And don't forget to subscribe to each of us individually at Reichel Radio, at Lonte, at XX on Twitter. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.